Okay, Chris Peaks back here today with Brandon Moseley for our BCS State Development Podcast, and we got Ag Commissioner, Lieutenant Governor candidate here with us, Rick Pate. Commissioner, how's the campaign going so far?
It's going well, yeah. It's thing I get a lot of energy out of people and being around people, and so yeah. I mean, I can't say the riding up and down I-65 is fun day after day after day, but actually, when I get somewhere, I kind of get my energy from that, uh, and so yeah, it's going well. People are really. I've been pleased the way people have received me. People respect the work we've done the last 7 years, and probably had 3 calls yesterday or text people wanting yard time. So yeah, we just keep on keeping on.
Commissioner, there were like three candidates that got in that race late. I didn't really expect George Childress, I think you announced earlier, but hadn't done much. And then John Wall, the Republican chairman, and then Dr. Stuart Tankersley. I mean, how many candidates are in this now? Seven or eight? I mean, it's like who's not running for lieutenant governor?
I don't know. I had looked. I think it's seven. I'd heard, but I hadn't looked it up. But yeah, I heard that about Dr. Tankersley. That's one that I certainly had not heard of. I heard of the George fella. And I knew, I thought John Wall was not, but he had told me 6 months ago he was considering it. So I guess I wasn't totally surprised. He called me Friday about 4:50. I guess he had just registered and told me he had, which I do appreciate him calling.
Commissioner, I noticed the last time I seen with looked at the reports, I think you had close to $600,000 in the bank. I mean, how's fundraising going?
Well, I think with as many people in it, it's going to even go slower. Of course, I think Tubble's already gotten about 10 million. I was talking to him the other day. Yeah, it's kind of pulling teeth. Um, but until January, even though we started sort of campaigning last May almost when we could start raising money, really people hadn't been paying any attention. It's outside of Montgomery, the 2,000 people in Montgomery that live and die with this stuff. But I think now that Christmas and New Year are behind us, the national championship behind us, yeah, I think people are starting to pay a little more attention. So. We'll just do the best we can. I don't know. I didn't raise the most in my ag race. I think you got to raise enough to be competitive, but I don't know that you got to have the most money. I mean, we would have a different governor if who raised the most got to be win all these races. You just got to be have enough to get your message out. What that number is, I'm not exactly sure.
Commissioner, we're now in a legislative session. I know that's been overshadowed by football, basketball, and candidate qualifying, plus, whatever country Trump's attacking at the moment. But um, how do you think this session's going? And is there any legislation that you're kind of watching?
I think it's going to start today, Brandon. I think the last 2 weeks have just been playing because until qualifying, I was told by several senators and House people, yeah, they weren't going to take up anything controversial that would draw an
You would
opponent.
draw a primary opponent.
And now the qualifying's over, they can really get to the serious business. So we'll start to see what they're up to. I mean, they've made a commitment to get in and get out, and they're burning through some days pretty fast. So, normally, don't you think you've been around longer than I have? They're not going to really tackle anything too controversial that last session of the quadrennium. I think they can look for next year to be probably when they'll take on more controversial legislation.
Yeah, I don't think they want like a gambling amendment on the ballot with a bunch of Republicans running for re-election. That's just me.
No, no, and that's what I've heard. I think that's what all the smart money has been saying that they won't probably get into that this year. I would hope. we've had some good years. I know it seems like every year, the last few years, they've said, well, the good times are over, but it seems like we still have record surpluses, which is great. And I think they filled up every rainy day fund they have. And so I really like to see them try to tackle getting rid of another cent off of that grocery tax. That's about as regressive a way to tax people as there is to charge them for buying food. And so I think to really make the emphasis on cutting that. And then obviously we've got the whole thing about state income tax with us competing against Florida and Tennessee with no income tax. And now you got Mississippi and Georgia looking to incrementally at least change theirs a little bit lower. I think this might be the time to try to see, if we can give people some of that back.
Commissioner, along those same lines, I remember I sent an ad you had a while back about rowing in the same direction as Coach. Have you sat down and talked to him about the legislative agenda that you would like to see get through if you're Lieutenant Governor?
Well, we've certainly talked a lot about it. I'll see him. I think next week I'm gonna be in DC with him and Senator Brett separately. But yeah, about working together and being on the same page. But I don't know that until Qualified got over, he was gonna say I actually had talked to him about endorsing me, and at the time he wasn't ready to do that. But anyway, yeah, and I've talked to, I feel like that's kind of what I bring to the table, the relationships with Coach, and then the relationships I have with Garland and Steve Livingston in the Senate. Things hadn't always been that everybody was pulling in the exact same direction in the last few years. So hopefully that we can get a lot more done if we are.
I know our focus is entirely on the primary right now, but we've got Doug Jones running for governor and Ron Sparks running for Commissioner of Agriculture, Philip Ensler, another guy running for lieutenant governor that, if you get the nomination, you'll have to face. Is there a concern that they've got bodies and a little bit of name recognition that maybe Democrats may think they have some momentum this time?
Yeah, Brandon, you probably could answer that as good as I could, but I don't see it. I think they were so uniformly criticized. Of course, 7 years ago, they really ran some pretty decent candidates. They ran Walt Maddox against in the governor's first full term, and but it didn't seem who they ran. I mean, a good candidate might get 41%, a bad candidate might get 39%, but I don't know that the numbers certainly haven't shifted in Alabama toward a Democrat winning unless you get into some unique situation like with Judge Moore, that some people, he wasn't just everybody's cup of tea, I guess I'd say, and didn't have uniform support among the GOP. But yeah, I don't know. Then you go from 7 years ago running a full slate to 4 years ago running almost no one, and I think they were universally criticized by each other that they weren't even putting up effort. And so I think this is a response to some of that from 4 years ago where they hardly ran any candidates. And people saying if you're not even gonna try, then you're gonna fail. So I mean, I don't. I mean, it doesn't surprise me they're putting people in these races. We'll see how it turns out, but I don't. Unless you know something I don't know, I don't know why they'd have any better chance this race than they have in the last two or three.
Commissioner, here on the last two times we've had Mo Brooks on the podcast, he has blasted Wes Allen for legislation concerning not allowing naturalized citizens run for office. He's called him a Yahoo. He said he's evil. Said this is like Jim Crow. Do you have any comments on what Wes Allen's trying to get passed with that?
No, I think Wes was probably responding to the guy in New York. I guess I don't know. Sometimes I think we solutions to problems we're trying to find. Yeah, I don't know that, what I am supportive of is I can't think of the term that's used, but natural born citizenship. I mean, and this is not a new thing, but 40 years ago, I thought, well, we're one of the few countries in the world that just automatically guarantees citizenship, even if you've just been here 5 minutes. And I'm not sure. I know the president's been talking about that. I'm not so sure that we don't need to. I think there's a case before the Supreme Court now that might get some a little bit explanation of where we are. But anyway, but I don't really know what Wes was to with that legislation he was proposing.
Uh, Commissioner, there's been a lot of talk about I-65 and six laning that thing all the way from Mobile to Tennessee line. Is that something we need to prioritize, or are there more other projects like the West Alabama Highway or widening 411 through St. Clair County, or I mean, the highway bridge on I-10? Should we have like a singular focus on I mean, everyone would like to see it done, but is it worth doing it at the cost of not doing other projects?
That's a great point. Yeah, those projects you talk about, 565 in Huntsville is just a mess. I mean, of course, they got so many people moving there. I don't know that you could build enough infrastructure right now in Huntsville, but I-10 bridge is awful important. But yeah, we got to do better. In particular, they working it down to Calera, and so I can speak about I-65 because I drive it a lot, and unless you live in Birmingham and work in Montgomery, I doubt you're driving it much more than I am. I think last week I rode it four
Yes,
straight
that would be
days
me.
between Montgomery and Birmingham, and sometimes, depending, I plan my schedule so that I'm not going with the rush traffic in or out of Birmingham. And but it's a mess. Of course, they're doing so much construction there from Alabaster to Calera. And then for some reason, it seems to bottle up to me sort of north of Clanton. I mean, that's the second bottleneck you kind of hit, and there's no reason for it to bottleneck there. Of course, there's a lot of traffic when you're going north, when you clear 2059, but most of the time it doesn't stop. And so it just is busy. But yeah, I think it's going to take all of the above. I don't think you could, we have to make the investment in infrastructure. I mean, um, I'm convinced that there's people out there that have been in government so long, they think government's a solution. And I would contend the government's a problem. And so what we need to do if we're going to be in government is just unleash business, because business is who generates all the income, so we can do the things like build new prisons and fund mental health. And so as a person that was in business for 37 years, I always felt like government was an impediment to me being successful. And the government never understood the more successful I was, the more money it had. It's like it was creating barriers to me. And all I was doing was trying to make a pot of money so I could give them more. And it's like, they didn't understand it that way. They thought their job was to regulate me and trip me up and try to make it as hard as I could do business. But yeah, we have to as to make whatever investments in rural Alabama in broadband, but you've got to have good roads. I'm convinced, and I saw it during COVID. There's a lot of people want to live in rural Alabama, but you got to give them decent roads. You got to give them broadband. But not everybody wants to live in a big city. I think sometimes we think they do, but obviously there's structural things we got to do. The schools, people are not going to go where there's not decent schools. And so you say, well, it's a school choice. Well, you get in the black belt where I live, and there ain't no choice. I mean, it's not your school failing and the one next one school system over is good. It's bad, bad, bad. And so where's your choice? So we got to keep expanding school choice. Um, obviously people want to feel safe. I think in by and large, if I mean, we certainly feel safe living in where we live. But anyway, that sort of answers your question, Brandon, in a roundabout way.
For the issues that you were just mentioning there, is there one that stands out to you that you think is the most important one facing our state today?
Well, obviously, yeah, investment in infrastructure because it's a multiplier. And so so some things you spend money on and you're just spending money, but the more you can unleash business, you just get that much back and more. And so the more we can make Alabama business friendly, provide, bring industry in with good paying jobs, then you got more people paying into the system, fewer people on unemployment. Everything just works better in state government and local governments. Um, because the federal government sometimes I guess they think they could just print money, but yeah, the state doesn't have that ability, and the only way they can have more money is to let businesses operate and free up businesses to generate more taxes for them.
Commissioner, you touched on this earlier, but if I'm looking to start, a big startup company and I plan to make a bunch of money, I can go to Florida and me and my company pay zero income tax, state income taxes. I can do the same in Texas. Georgia's less than us. It's like zero. I think it's headed to zero in Tennessee. And, why? I mean, you as lieutenant governor will be part of economic development. How can you tell that guy that Alabama is the place to be, even though, yes, you will pay more in state income taxes here than in any other southern state?
That's a great point, Brandon. I think, and that's probably used against us in recruiting industry. Obviously, Tennessee, Florida don't have any, but I think you got to look at the whole package as a state. Um, our property taxes are low. And so it's the whole thing. I heard Representative Garrett, I assume I'm trusting him that he said this right, but we're 48th, 49th in the lowest tax in the
But
United
now,
States. But income tax, I think we're at 5% state income tax after a couple of, after $6,000 or something. I think you're right that Georgia and Mississippi are like taking theirs down 1/4% or something. And I think we need to be able to look at doing that more toward, at least have that as a goal to eliminating state income tax and work on getting it down as low as we possibly can. Because the more there again, the more money you give back to business and people, the more it's going to end up generating for the government. I mean, if you want to see less of an activity, just tax it more, and you'll see a lot less of that activity.
now sometimes, Danny Garrett's correct that per capita tax collections in Alabama, we're like 48th in that. But now a lot of that is because there's like 40% of Alabamians, they get their EBT card and they go down to the Dollar General to buy their Cheetos to eat today, and they don't have a lot of expenses because they don't work. So we have a high poverty, and those guys don't pay that much in taxes outside of whatever we tax for Cheetos.
Well, yeah,
I mean, if you make like 100,000, it's not necessarily we're not 48.
Yeah, I've never seen that study, Brandon. I'm not trying to argue with you. I just don't know. Yeah, that'd be a good thing to check for a family of four making $150,000. How are your taxes in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Tennessee? You might be right in what you're saying.
You will pay less property taxes on your home here than virtually anywhere else.
What's that now?
You will pay less property
Oh,
taxes
absolutely.
on your
In
home than
Alabama.
virtually anywhere else. But our sales taxes are high and our income taxes are high compared to other southern states.
I want to try to lower and I'd love to say eliminate state income tax in Alabama. I think if we've got to start lowering it first, we're not going to do it in one fatal swoop. And that's what our neighboring states are doing. They're not. I know Mississippi's governor said he's going to completely eliminate it, but he's just taking it down incrementally, like a quarter of a percent at a time. And I think we should make that a goal for Alabama also, as well as getting rid of that last 2 cents on our groceries. I certainly do.
Commissioner, with so many people in this race, and this will be probably the most wide open or contested lieutenant governor's race in a while. Here recently, we've seen Secretary of State Wes Allen start going after Chairman Wall. Do you think this race is going to turn dirty?
I hope not. Alabamians deserve better than that. That doesn't really help anybody. I mean, and it just gets to the point where nobody wants to run for this stuff. Um, you know, I, I know people are desperate. Some people are desperate to win. I would certainly hope that wasn't the case. Um, because yeah, it just puts all politicians, if you would. I really like to say I'm a public servant, and I really feel that way about my job I've done as Department of Ag. But when you get into all that stuff, yeah, it just ruins uh, the name of people running, and it certainly discourages good people from wanting to run. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I hope not. I certainly won't.
Commissioner, we've got, especially attracting people to rural Alabama, we have an issue somewhat with health care. It's like if you're going to have a baby in some of these counties, it's like a 45 or 55-minute drive to an obstetrician because even if they still have a rural hospital, the rural hospital doesn't have an obstetrician to deliver the kid. Do we have a plan in place? I know we've got some money that's rolled down from the Fed to try to shore that up, or are we just going to keep losing doctors and losing hospitals in our rural counties?
Well, I hope not. Yeah, they actually, I think about a year ago, the governor put together a task force of really some smart people that are real knowledgeable about the medical in Alabama. And so they've come up with some recommendation. I've read it several times, what their recommendation, and I can't quote it, and it's not here in front of me, Brandy, but I mean, one of the things, like you said, is prenatal care. We do have, I mean, our statistics aren't great in Alabama, and that's mainly because of the black belt on healthy baby births, but going to more telehealth. Um, there's several things in there that they're proposing, and I think we're prepared to make some of those investments now. Is every rural hospital going to be there? Probably not. Probably we don't have anything like that in Lowndes County. Of course, there is, I think, still in Luverne. I think there still is something in Greenville. Of course, Selma has something, but yeah, we're close enough, I guess, where we are anyway. I could be at Baptist South in probably 20 minutes. One of the things on the governor's recommendation was better ambulance service um, from the rural areas to uh, facilities to care for people. So I think more people are thinking about that. But you're right, it is a problem.
Commissioner, kept you almost 25 minutes, so I don't want to take up any more of your time. Before you make a closing statement, I want to ask you. I know the first time I kidded you about something that you said if your wife found out you was running for something before you told her you was going to be in trouble. Was it a long conversation, or was Miss Pate was okay with it?
Well, she can probably hear me. I'm at the house, but no, I think she's been very encouraging about it. Yeah, she has agreed that me being ag commissioner the last 7 years has really been a real meaningful time in both of our lives, and that we've helped people and helped rural Alabama. And so I think she sees the opportunity there for me to serve, continue to serve, and both of us feel like I got something left in the tank, to give back. It's certainly, like I said, after 37 years, I felt like we made our living and money. I had both of my boys through college. Both of them are married. Both of them got good jobs. And so, yeah, it's really a part of my life where I just want to serve people. And, I've obviously been at this level, and really the lieutenant governor job was the only one that really appealed to me and really fit my skill set as far as businessman. I've said this many times, but over 37 years, back in the old days, we'd give a man or woman a paper check on Friday. But over 37 years, averaging 30 employees, I've signed the front of over 57,000 payroll checks. So some man or woman could take that home and give it to their spouse and pay for their groceries and their needs. And that's not normal in government to have people with the business experience I have. And I think one of the things we have is this people that continue to run for all this stuff that really don't understand anything how to create a business. And so that's really what I bring. I mean, if that's not something people want, they probably don't want to vote for me, because yeah, I'm gonna bring a business like attitude to that position, and because that's what I am.
Thank you so much for
Commissioner,
being on,
thank you so
Commissioner.
much.
You bet. Thank y'all. Y'all have a
Have a
great
great
day.
day.
You
Bye bye.
too.